Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to the World Below. Now, last time we spoke about the Storypath Ultra System in Basic. D10 dice pools, 8s, 9s or 10s, enhancements and complications, difficulties, that's it. Now, I want to explain tricks to you in this video, because tricks are a fundamental part of Storypath Ultra and the World Below. They make your action more interesting, but they can also be applied to all kinds of scenes and scenarios in the game. For the sake of this video, I will explain them through the lens of action-adventure, combat as an example. So, let's say, for instance, that I am trying to hit someone who is in armor. That person has a defense rating. The defense rating is governed by whatever armor they happen to be wearing. Let's say their defense is 2. That's not great. Everyone has a flat defense of 1. Everyone always has a difficulty of 1, but a defense of 2 means the difficulty is 2. Therefore, in order to hit them with my close combat plus might roll, I would need to get 2 hits or more in order to get through the armor and actually hurt them. Now, there are some ways around this. Your weapon might have what is called a tag that can bypass armor, or you may still apply a status effect to them regardless. These are possibilities, but as a general rule, you need to hit the defense target or exceed it in order to do what you're intending to do, which is hit the bugger. Now, let's say you manage to do it. Let's say your mace crumples their breastplate, caves in their rib cage. Congratulations, you've dealt a point of damage to them. That's it, that's all you've done. You've done a point of damage. That doesn't sound like much. I would like to, however, point out, because this has often been mentioned to me, if the maximum amount of damage a character can do is 1, combat is going to take bloody ages. Well, that isn't the case, especially if you've got multiple characters ganging up on an enemy at once, and especially if you're not aiming for lethality with every single fight. You see, the World Below, and pretty much every Storypath Ultra game that will exist, isn't going to focus on battles to the death every single damn time. Quite often, it's much better to incapacitate, disarm, negotiate, or flee. And that is definitely the case in the World Below. So I'm going to give you a good example of this. We have our opponent in armor, difficulty 2, so the defense is pretty low, but it is still there. It's still slightly better than 1. I roll to hit my close combat and might, and on my roll I am fortunate enough to get an 8, an 8, a 9, and a 10. So 8, 8, 9, and 10 equals 5 hits, because remember, 10s count for 2 hits. I have not only hit the difficulty, I have bypassed it, I have surpassed it, I have hit it, and I have 3 hits remaining. What can I use these hits for? Well, you can buy these hits to purchase tricks. If you remember, I mentioned we're going to talk about this in the realm of action-adventure. You can buy tricks for all kinds of actions in Storypath Ultra, but what we're talking about right now are combat tricks. Combat tricks can be used to do things like dodge an upcoming attack if you're defending, or they can be used to attack. They can be used to, for instance, call attention to yourself. I'm going to actually read some from the manuscript. As an example, if you spend 2 hits on the attention combat trick, your blow draws the victim's attention, meaning they'll target you in the next combat round unless combat ends before then, or someone hits them with this trick after you. So if you're the biggest, baddest member of the party and you want all hits directed to you because you can soak them up, you want to get the enemy's attention with your hit. You can also have something like distraction. Distraction only costs you 1 hit. If you hit someone with it, that means all their subsequent ranged combat attacks are going to come at increased difficulty, because they're basically distracted by the fact that you just hit them. Now, here's a good one. For 3 hits, you could purchase the critical trick. That does an additional damage to your target. So, see, you can start whittling people down pretty quickly, especially when most of them have a health of somewhere between 1 and 10. You might go for, let's go for disarm. Disarm is a good one. Disarm costs you 2 hits. You use your weapon as leverage, pulling or twisting your opponent's weapon or item out of their hand. So you can see how the more hits you get, the more tricks you can unlock. And what's more, you can use more than 1 trick simultaneously. That's right. So, Tricks are they're a really fun part of play. In original Storypath, we called them stunts. In Storypath Ultra, they're a little more streamlined and we call them tricks. And these tricks apply to all kinds of actions. Whenever you surpass difficulty and you have hits remaining, you can quickly look up the list of tricks and purchase whichever ones you want. I recommend noting on your character sheet some of your favourite tricks, and that means you can immediately look to them and say, okay, I'm going to go for disarm. That cost me 2 hits. Nice and simple. Easy, easy. That's all tricks are. That's what you use your additional hits to do. There will be other occasions in the game where you use additional hits to do other things, but this is the system at its most basic. You're likely to be able to do this whenever you achieve an extraordinary success. Extraordinary successes in Storypath Ultra are where you have hit the difficulty and then you still have hits remaining, which can then be converted into tricks. So, yeah, that's it. That's combat tricks, and that's also pretty much how combat runs. We'll do a proper breakdown of combat in another video, starting with initiative and working all the way through from delivering a hit through to delivering damage and what your opponent can do to resist, retaliate, dodge, that kind of thing. But at its most basic, additional hits can be used to purchase tricks. Thank you very much for watching.